Hello everyone, welcome to 1045 Engineering. We are here with yet another video in Grind 75, a Better Blind 75 coding series. So today's problem is on merge intervals. Let's jump into the problem statement, understand it and start coding. Okay, last time we have solved the permutations problem. You can find it in the list. Let's start with merge intervals. Given an array of intervals where intervals I equals to start I and I, merge all overlapping intervals and return an array of the non-overlapping intervals that cover all the intervals in the input. So we have the intervals 1, 3, 2, 6, 8, 10, 15, 18. We have to return it with merging the overlapping interval. So we can see if something is starting at 1 ending at 3 and something is starting at 2 and ending at 6, there's a merge, right? There's an overlap, right? So we can merge it. So we'll start it at 1 and end it at 6. Then next is 8 and starts at 8 ends at 10, starts at 15 ends at 18. Okay, I'm wait one second. I'm getting the feeling that we have already solved similar problem in our grind 75 coding list on merging intervals. Okay, please go through that one as well. If you have already been through that, it must be pretty easy to understand this, right? So all we have to do in this problem is we have to iterate through this array. Okay, array of array. We have to iterate through this array. We have to check if there is a merge at if there is an overlap at any case. If there is an overlap, wait, so this is already sorted, but we are not mentioned that the always the intervals would be sorted. Okay, so first thing would be, let's comment. First thing would be, we'll sort the array based on start times. Okay, after sorting it will look just like this. So 1 is the start time, smaller than 2, smaller than 8, smaller than 15. Once they are sorted, we'll iterate through the array. Okay, we'll find if there is an overlap. How will we find an overlap? We'll compare the current interval end time with the next interval's start time. If current interval's end time is bigger than next interval's start time, then there is an overlap. We'll merge them. How do we merge them? We'll make the change to the current interval only. We'll update the current interval's end time with the max of both the intervals end time, that is this one or this one, because it can happen that you have an array like this where you have first value as uh, 1 comma 9 and the next value is 4 comma 6. Okay, now when we compare 9 is bigger than 4, we know there's an overlap, right? But we cannot conclude that the end time of the second interval would be bigger than this interval. So we'll keep the bigger interval as the bigger of these two, and smaller interval will of course be the current interval, because they are already sorted. We have already sorted them, right? That's it, and then we'll add them as part of our result list or the merged intervals, and we'll return the merged intervals, right? Okay, so let's start coding. Okay, so first we'll check if the provided array is already empty or has only one interval, because in that case that is the only solution. So I'll say check if the array is empty or has only one interval. So if intervals is equal to null, or intervals dot length is less than equal to 1, because 0 is also allowed, we can simply return intervals. That's it. Otherwise we'll first sort the array, right? So we'll say sort intervals based on start time, and for this we can use the lambda expression. So we can say arrays dot sort. We pass the array that we want to sort, that is intervals, and here we provide a lambda expression a b, and then the lambda symbol integer dot compare a of 0 and b of 0. Okay, this will sort it in the ascending order. Next we'll create a list for the merge intervals and for the current interval. So list of arrays merged intervals is equal to new array list. So we'll add all the merged intervals or all the final intervals to this merged intervals, right? That's it. Okay, then we'll keep track of our current interval to move forward. Current interval would be the first interval. We'll pick the first interval as the current interval, right? So current interval would be intervals of 0, right? Because we have no indexing as of now. Now we'll iterate through our intervals, or I should say sorted intervals, and find the overlap or merge the overlap. So we can say iterate through sorted intervals to merge overlapping intervals. So we can say for int I is equal to 1, since we have already taken the 0, I is less than intervals dot length I plus plus. Okay, now int next interval is equal to intervals of I, right? So in current interval we have 1 3, in next interval we'll get 2 6, right? Okay, now we'll check for overlap. So check for overlap. As we mentioned, how do we check for overlap? If current interval 1, that is the end time, right? Current interval 0 would be the start time, current interval 1 is the end time. If it is greater than equal to next interval start time, that is 0, then there is an overlap. So we'll merge, right? We already discussed how we are going to merge the overlapping intervals. So we'll directly update current intervals end time. Current interval end time, that is 1 is equal to math.max of both the intervals end time. Current interval 1 or next interval 1, right? Else, so if there's no overlap, like that would happen for this case, we can simply add it to our merge list, right? So we'll say add non overlapping interval to the result. So here we modified the current intervals end time and start time and end time. So start time and end time for current interval became 1 6, right? Now since current interval became 1 6, this loop is over. We move forward, I is equal to 2, next interval is 8 and 10. So we compare 1 6 with 8 and 10, right? So there is no overlap, so it enters the else part, and we can add this current loop to our merged intervals. So we'll say merged intervals dot add current interval, right? Now current interval will move forward like a pointer. Current interval is equal to next interval, right? Now 8 10 will become our current interval. Okay, now we'll compare 8 10 with 15 18. So there is no overlap. We'll add the current interval to the merged intervals, right? So 8 10 will be added, current interval will move to the next interval. So we'll move to next interval. At this point the loop can get over. Okay, and what will happen now? What will happen now? Because at this point in time 15.8 will be compared with the next interval which does not exist, so we have to add the last interval to the merged list as well. Okay, so we'll say add the last interval to the result, or okay, result. So we'll say merged intervals dot add current interval, right? That's it. That is all the solution that we want. Now the thing is, we want to return the result in integer format, in the integer array format, grid format, right? We use the list format to add the results because it was easier. Now let's return, so we have to convert it into the array. Convert list to array. So we'll say int result is equal to new int merged intervals dot size, and the next would be 2 because there is start and end time only. Now for int I is equal to 0, I is less than merged intervals dot size I plus plus, result of I is equal to merged intervals dot get I. Okay, and then we can say return result. That's it, right? Let's run. Now meantime, oh, there is no meantime. Let's see, we missed something. Maybe there is one extra. Okay, oh, this spelling mistake is also there, INTE. I had actually seen it before it compiled. Intervals. Okay, now when we come to the time complexity part of it, right? Beats 91.11, great. Okay, when we compare the time complexity part of it, if you can see, this sorting is happening, right? Apart from that, this for loop is running, that is running only one, and we are iterating through all the intervals. So the time complexity of this for loop would be O of n, but the sorting is taking place in n log n time complexity. So the overall time complexity of the algorithm would be n log n because of the sorting. So that's all from today's video, everyone. For anything, please let me know in the comment section, and in the end, please like, share and subscribe. Thank you.